Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mark Hoff. I'm a vice principal at the high school, and I'm very excited to be presenting this to you this evening. The intended audience for this presentation are families and students who are considering our program that we're going to start this spring, a pilot program, which is going to include transportation to Montgomery County Community College. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about what we've done in preparation for this, things we've changed as we are really trying to reimagine the junior and senior experience at Cheltenham High School. And so for this school year, the 25-26 school year, through our scheduling process and presentations that we gave last spring, we've increased the number of students participating in our diversified occupations program from 16 to 25. Those are students who are participating in a career and technical education program through the high school, in which they are learning job skills and are working up to at least 15 hours a week and receiving credit for that. Additionally, because of our diversified occupations program, we have, we saw a need for students who wanted experiences, but in places where they couldn't really get a job. So in like doctor's offices or in education. And so we've reconfigured our senior internship program to give a class in the fall that's supporting a 120-hour internship in the spring. And we have 27 students participating in that program. And lastly, we've more than doubled the number of students participating in dual enrollment this year. We went from 37 students this year to yesterday, the count was at 82. So these are some of the things that we've done to increase the number of options that our students have as they're thinking about their futures, as they're trying to make their senior year, and we'll talk about junior year, more and more meaningful for themselves. Which brings us to the focus of tonight, dual enrollment, and this new experience that we're going to have this spring. So this is going to focus on Montgomery County Community College. And the reason why we're focusing on MontCo is there's really three reasons for it. The first is they have a broad range of courses that are available to our students. When we look at our other partner schools that we've done with dual enrollment, yes, they have availability of courses, but because of, the function of MontCo being a school that is very much driven towards students earning associate's degrees and then transferring to complete their programs, they have a broader range of classes that are set just for our students in that dual enrollment band. The other reason is transferability, which I'll highlight later in the presentation. And then the third is cost. Montgomery County Community College, in terms of our local programs, is by far the most affordable option. This year, a student can take a course for $230, which is basically paying for one credit of the three that comes with that course. The typical MontCo course this year is $690. So this is the program that we've had our most students taking, and most of those students are doing it virtually. When students take a course at Montgomery County Community College, a 3 or a 4 credit course, that comes and transfers into the high school at 1 credit. When students working with their counselors will identify the classes that they're looking at and determine whether they meet like specific graduation requirements, like one of the credits that we require for English, or whether it meets a graduation requirement in our elective categories. Students can take either through MontCo. And what we're seeing right now is our students are taking advantage of this opportunity, but they're taking advantage of the virtual option. And there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it deals with the fact that MontCo is 20-25 minutes away from campus. And so the challenge that we've been working through is, well, how do we increase the number of students taking in-person classes at MontCo? Because we believe that experience is really important for students. And the answer is we're going to try a bus this spring. And so working with Montgomery County Community College, we looked at their Monday, Wednesday, and their Tuesday, Thursday course offerings. And the Tuesdays, Thursday ones were the stronger ones for our students. Students are going to be able to get a bus at approximately 7:40 in the morning, get to MontCo at approximately 8:20 for an 8:30 class. They can take an 8:30 class, and then they'll take a 10, 10:15, 10:30 class, which will end before 12, and they'll get back on the bus at approximately 12:10, 12:15, and be back on campus to finish second lunch. So they'll be able to access both breakfast before they leave and lunch when they return, and the fourth block class. One of the things that we're very mindful of is trying to create opportunities for our students to continue to be, active in our whole school community. And so when we've been looking at options, the option of having students leave as early as possible so they can get back for block 4, participate in a block 4 class at the high school, and then also participate in extracurricular and sports activities, that is kind of the framework that we're working on. So this bus will allow students to take 2 in-person classes at MontCo. This will look different for juniors and for seniors. So for this opportunity, we're looking at juniors and seniors. Juniors need to have 4 rostered credits in the spring. And so what that would look like for a junior doing this is they would take 2 in-person classes at MontCo. They would take 1 virtual class at MontCo, and then they would take a 4th in-person class at the high school. For seniors, we've interpreted a free and appropriate public education for seniors who are ready to graduate on their credits. So they have all the credits they pretty much need, as taking 3 courses. So a lot of our seniors have a late arrival or an early dismissal. So keeping that in mind, seniors would need to do the 2 in-person classes and then either block 4 or a virtual class. And students will work with counselors to kind of build the appropriate schedule for them. So juniors need to take 4 total credits, 2 in-person MontCo, and then the other 2 will, look whether it's virtual, but preferably virtual and 4th block, because again, we're trying to maintain some continuity there. And then seniors 2 and 1, and that 1 could be virtual or in person. So costs, each MontCo class costs $230. So that's a total of $690 for 3 classes. The district does currently reimburse students for 1 course if they earn an A, B, or a C in that course. So if we factor that in, that would be a total cost of $460. I do want to note that books are not included in this, and additional fees. I believe MontCo has a relatively standard technology fee that's part of the registration process. So the 460 is the bottom number, and it will increase based on the courses that students take and any other fees that are attached. I do want to note that students do have access to a payment plan if they are registered for 3 classes. And that payment plan, I believe, is over 3 months. So basically, you'd be looking at like the 230 plus additional fees a month, for that payment plan. So I'm presenting this as a pilot, and it's a pilot because we're not 100% sure how this is going to fully work once we get going. Challenges that we're facing. One is that the MontCo spring semester actually starts while we're completing our first semester. So there's like a week and a half overlap that we're going to have to figure out, how we're going to navigate in terms of students taking final exams for the first semester and finishing up that coursework. Additionally, in this structure, students don't have classes Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays until block 4. And so for some students, that's going to give them the time to do the work. One of the things that we've emphasized with students when we look at our block schedule at the high school, students take, basically have 90 days worth of class for that credit. Looking at a Tuesday, Thursday class, that's 30 class periods that students are, meeting over the course of, 15 weeks. And so there's a lot more outside work. Part of our goal of this is to have students experience what that is like as a junior or senior with us, so that they can kind of work through that struggles before they hit freshman year, at whatever college or university that they're attending, so that they go through that kind of struggle now, where, to be frank, it's a little bit more low risk, as opposed to, hitting that freshman, year, taking 4 or 5 classes and all that independence that comes with it, and, struggling to manage that. So that time is a concern. The other thing that is a concern is that their semester ends a month before ours does. So the ending of the MontCo spring semester is, about the 2nd week of May. Our school year doesn't end until the 2nd week of June. So there's, again, another gap in time where students would really just kind of be there for block 4. So those are things that, we're hoping to work with, the students that are participating in this pilot to see what's working and what isn't working with it. So the requirements for doing this. Our agreement with Montgomery County Community College states that students need to have a 3.0 GPA to participate in dual enrollment. So, that's what we're looking for. The other thing that is going to not be a deal breaker for a lot of students is that if a student's in a world language class or an AP class or a performing art, those classes meet every other day all year. If the spring meeting does not fall into block 4, it is not going to work for a student. There was stuff we did with the master schedule to try to pull some of that stuff into block 4 because we knew we were going to, we were hoping to be able to put this out to you guys at this point. But we weren't able to get it all into block 4. So students who have an every other day class that hits in the spring semester and it's not hitting in block 4 are not going to be eligible to participate in the bus. They can do the virtual classes through MontCo, but they won't be able to do the in-person portion. So talking about timing, the spring semester starts on January 14th. It concludes on May 7th. Also of note, there are 2 7-week sessions in this overall spring session that could be used for the virtual classes. So if a student's looking at taking 2 virtual classes, they could do one in the first session and one in the second session, or they could do 1 or 2 that are the entire length of the semester. So what I'm showing on the screen now is half of the courses, and I'll show the others half in a moment, that are available for students to take in person at MontCo during the window that we're going to be there. So cultural anthropology, computer info systems and management, programming for everyone, computer science 1, computer science 2, introduction to criminal justice, criminal law, speech communications, public speaking, elements of economics, introduction to engineering, English Comp 1, English Comp 2, basic nutrition, human sexuality, and first-year experience. Montgomery County Community College definitely encourages students to look at that first-year experience. For us, that would be a general elective, but it's kind of like an introduction of, to how to kind of manage things at the college level and different experiences they want their students to have. The other courses that are going to be available: History 101, World Civ 1, World Civ 2, U.S. History to 1877, which is our U.S. History 1 course, but obviously at a different level. U.S. History from 1877 to current, which is our U.S. History 2 course. Intermediate Algebra, Foundations Math 1, Math Applications, Probability and Stats. So the math courses, students can work with the dual enrollment program at MontCo to figure out the appropriate ones for them. Management 101, Marketing 111, Business Software Essentials, Poli-Sci 124, American National Government, which a lot of our students are utilizing that course to fulfill our government requirement. Introduction to Psychology, Introduction to Organizational Psychology, Introduction Psychology, Introduction to Sociology, and Introduction to Sound Technology. Those are the courses that are available in the window that we're going to have students at MontCo on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I will put this presentation in the chat at the end. So this screen shows the class of 2024 and where they went to college in terms of schools that take MontCo credit. I highlighted the yellow, and I want to start there because these are schools that we either have current dual enrollment agreements with, or we can restart dual enrollment agreements if they have lapsed. And so if you have a student that's looking to go to Arcadia, looking to go to LaSalle, looking to go to Manor, or looking to go to Penn State Abington, it may be better to just do a direct dual enrollment program with them, and you can have that conversation with the school counselor. But they also all have agreements with MontCo, so it might also makes sense to go through Montgomery County Community College. Looking at the list, obviously, MontCo was the highest of this. 50 of our graduating seniors went to Montgomery County Community College, but Temple was at 28. I want to highlight the 13 at Drexel. MontCo has an agreement with Drexel University that if a student completes their associate's degree at MontCo, they get guaranteed admission to Drexel, and they get half off tuition at Drexel for their final 2 to 3 years that they are there. So I just wanted to highlight that if you have a student or if you're looking to go to Drexel. Westchester, 6 students, Temple, 28. These are all schools that if you complete the associate's degree at MontCo, that associate's degree is going to transfer in. And for the most part, and again, you can work with the group at MontCo, to get more details, but they'll generally take the individual classes too. So Arcadia, Chestnut Hill, Del Val, Drexel, Eastern, Gwynedd Mercy, Holy Family, Kutztown, LaSalle, Lincoln, Manor, MontCo, Newman, Penn State, Abington, St. Joe's, Temple, Westchester, Widener, Wilson are all schools that our students went to last year. Where if they had done course, and some of them did coursework at MontCo, it would have likely transferred into their programs at these schools. And again, if they complete the associate's degree at MontCo, that whole thing comes in as basically their first and second year in the programs. Okay, so next steps. I'm going to put a Google form in the chat. It is designed for students to complete. However, you can complete it if you're a parent and you know the information. We are going to have I'm going to send an email out tomorrow morning to any student that's on the list that we're going to meet on Thursday, September 11th during Panther Prep. The purpose of that meeting is going to show the students the enrollment process at MontCo. So if you have a student that's already enrolled at MontCo, they do not need to attend the September 11th session. After that, I'm going to provide this list to school counselors, and then school counselors are going to meet with them in late October and early October to late September and early October to go through their graduation requirements and discuss options for the spring. MontCo spring enrollment starts on October 15th. So the timeline we're looking at is we want students, when that window opens up, to be able to select the courses they have. We are going to put specific seat holds on certain classes so that our students are guaranteed those spots, but we aren't going to be able to provide enough seat holds for everybody in every course. This is kind of an evolving process that we have with MontCo. I do really want to emphasize this point. When students are looking at this, when they're interacting with Montgomery County Community College, they're interacting with them as college students. And so the students should be the one initiating the conversation with Montgomery County Community College. Their primary gateway is dual enrollment at mc3.edu. They generally respond within 24 to 48 hours. And again, it should be the student reaching out on a non-Cheltenham email account. Once students have created their Montgomery County Community College, have been, done the application, been accepted, they're going to get a MontCo email, and that should be their primary method of communication with people at the college. So if you're looking at stuff, if you see that, look at the course catalog and it says there's a prereq and you get questions about that, it's dual enrollment at mc3.edu. If you're thinking about if this has generated the idea that, oh, maybe I might be interested in getting my associate's degree from MontCo, you can drive those questions to dual enrollment at mc3.edu, and then they'll direct you to, people as needed. So again, our school counselors are going to be able to look at a course and say, yes, that course is going to count for this graduation requirement. But beyond that, in terms of like long-term planning within MontCo, that is really going to happen through the dual enrollment program at MontCo. So I want to do a couple things here. And then, so if you have any questions at the time, if you want to put them in the chat, I'm going to put this presentation in the chat. I just going to stop sharing so that it's there. That will hopefully allow me to. So if you have any questions, you'll put them on the chat. Here we go. Share. Link. Copy. Okay, so here is the presentation. And then the link to the Google form. And if you received an email from me as your invitation, we already have your students' information on the Google form. So the Google form would be for anybody who's on the call tonight, who came from word of mouth or from the district post. So again, if you have any questions at the time, you can put them in the chat. I will absolutely attempt to answer them. If a student currently has 2 AP classes and neither is in block 4, am I correct that the spring pilot program will not work? You are unfortunately correct. Students can definitely take advantage of the virtual options through MontCo, but they're not going to be able to participate in the bus this spring. or we do assume that this will not work for students who are enrolled in MontCo and attending a program there. Again, you are correct. The bus will not work for a student that's at Eastern. However, again, we do have several Eastern students who, one, are getting dual enrollment credit for some of the stuff they're doing at Eastern, but also who are doing the virtual class for their coursework. So they're really just attending Eastern, or one class at the high school in Eastern and then doing the other class virtual. Will students need to complete placement tests before taking courses? Also, students can't take English 102 without completing English 101. So MontCo generally does not administer placement tests. Their rule of thumb, and again, it's a rule of thumb, and so there's conversations that the student can have with the dual enrollment people, is that if students are getting A's and B's in English, they will generally allow them to take English 101. If they're not getting A's and B's, they're going to need to take a class below English 101. If a student is looking to go to MontCo, there might be reasons to do that. It is not a class that won't transfer anybody else. A below 100, English class won't. But if a student has struggled in English, there may be some logic in doing that, especially as a senior, if the student knows they're going to go to MontCo, because those are preparatory classes that MontCo is expecting students to complete before they'll allow them to do English 101. Can a student take 2 virtual classes? Yes, we have a student or 2 that are taking 4 virtual classes right now. We are really trying to create we're really trying to provide students with options. And we understand for some students, they're ready to go do different things. For some students, they're ready to go do one different thing. For some students, they're not. None of this makes sense at the moment. So we really want to be as open and transparent as possible about the options that are there. Going back to that senior internship, one of the things we're looking to do for next year, this year, there are approximately 7 students who are looking to be education majors. And so we're going to place them in district schools in the spring as part of our senior internship. One of the things we're looking to do next year is have them participate in 1 or 2 MontCo education classes at the same time. So they're kind of, going through that as a cohort experience. Are there any asynchronous options? Yes, a lot of those virtual classes are asynchronous. There are some synchronous ones. Those are more challenging to work into students' schedules. It may be less challenging to work some of those into students' schedules if they're taking a bus to MontCo on Tuesdays and Thursdays and we've cleared out their blocks 1, 2, or 3. That synchronous option might actually work on a Monday, Wednesday. That, again, one of the things we're hoping to see as we go through this experience. I know this is a pilot. Are you considering other schools for dual enrollment? So we do have agreements with Arcadia, with Manor, with Penn State Abington, with LaSalle. We are not looking at transportation for any of those at the moment because we don't have a critical mass of students to make the math work on it. But if there's enough student interest, obviously Arcadia is walkable. And in fact, there's a student who passes me every day during into block 3 because they're coming back from, well, not every day, twice a week, they're coming back from Arcadia for their class. So we do have students that walk across, the street to do Arcadia. But, if a student has transportation, they certainly can do the other options. We can also look at SEPTA in terms of options if that works. If students still want to attend virtual class through MontCo as well as attending CHS and Eastern, is that possible? And if they ask questions to MontCo as far as recommendations for courses through dual enrollment at MontCo email. Okay, so 2 parts here. So student can absolutely still do the virtual option with Eastern. Bus isn't going to work, but virtual and Eastern will work. We actually also have a student who I believe in the spring is an Eastern student, has their own transportation, and is planning on taking a 8 or 8:30 in the morning class. They're a PM Eastern student, so they're going to drive themselves up to MontCo, take that class, and then drive to Eastern. So that is a possibility that they're doing. And then in terms of questions about what courses they might be most interested in, that is going to be a question for dual enrollment at MontCo. At monco.mc3.edu. In terms of will this class count for this requirement, that's a question for our school counselors. My students take AP classes early in the day. Are they all the courses listed in the LIHTC being offered as virtual options? No, there are some of those classes are not being offered as virtual options, and other classes are being offered as virtual options. So I'm going to, in the chat, put the MontCo dual enrollment website in. Copy. So here is the link to the dual enrollment thing, and in there at the first link in there says explore our full course offerings, and so you'll be able to see what they've generally been done in the fall. The spring is not out yet. I do not have a list of the spring virtual classes that they're going to be offering, but you can kind of look at the fall to see generally what they've been doing. These have been great questions. Thank you. Do these courses count like AP courses in terms of weighted grades? If it is a course that is 100 level or above, yes. They come into the transcript the same way an AP class would. Let me, so this form says need access. I thought I had changed that. Okay, if you refresh the link, it should work now. I apologize for that. Can you please talk about some of the pros and cons of doing this versus AP courses in terms of students who want to go to a selective college? So, and this is just my perspective. This is not an official perspective from Montgomery County Community College or from the school district. The short answer is no one really knows. Different colleges and universities look at dual enrollment different and AP differently. So it really is a matter of looking at the schools your student may be interested in and then kind of looking at their policies. It's, when I went to school, 20 some odd years ago, it was AP, 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 AP. Now it's all over the place. I can envision a place where we have where we have students that are, still actively doing a lot of AP classes, but we also then have a group of students that are actively doing dual enrollment and not doing AP. In terms of the amount of mixing that's going to happen in the future, I don't know. That's something we're going to experience over the next couple of years, is my feeling. We really are trying to let students do what is best for them. Unfortunately, and it's unsettling in some ways, we can't 100% say what is best. The best we can do at the moment is, provide options to students and families, talk through those options, but ultimately, I can't tell you where things are going to be in a couple of years. It's the same thing when we look at like employment options and all the things that are happening with AI and everything at the moment. It's hard for us to say this is what the future is going to be. And so the best we can do as a school community is provide as many opportunities as we can, allow students to experience as much as they can, and then, hope that, the path that they end up choosing really does work out for them. Other questions? Okay, I'm gonna hang on for a minute or two. But I believe at this point, we've probably concluded this presentation. Again, I'll say back, if there are any other questions that come across the chat, this will be posted on the district website and pushed out through social media. So the registration is in October 15th. The semester begins, it's mid-January. Yes, so the GPA requirement is a 3.0 overall. I know we just had somebody join. This recording is going to be pushed out through social media and through the district website, hopefully tomorrow. We're just wrapping up with the Q&A right now, and I, believe we're just about there. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank you all for attending tonight. Let me end the recording.